boy, do. One little boy from Africa, he put a face on it. The world till he died. These are the words he said. He said, do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can. Holy Mother from India, helping the sick and the poor. Somebody asked, why do you do these things? She said, this is what I came here for. She said, do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can. This is the gift they gave to us, to share wherever we go. Be the change you wish to see in this world. Now I understand what they wanted us to know. They said, do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place you are. Do all you can. Do all you can. Da 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 da. Do all you can. One little boy from Africa, do all you can. Holy Mother from India, do all you can. Be the change you wish to see in this world, do all you can. Do all you can. Do all you can. Okay, that was fun.
Every Sunday we normally have a skit, and the skit is just like reading a book or watching a movie. It's the ability to see things from a different perspective. And we had one kind of queued up, a little video one, but I thought that as today's message is on intuition, and last week for the skit we had Mary had story time. Today, Scott will have story time, because we're doing intuition, and this is kind of where I live. And you know, there's a lot of things that we can do with our intuition for ourselves. There's a lot that we can do with others, and to me, it just continually reinforces that God is good, and that it's all real, that it's not just thinking about or a belief system or this make-believe thing that we tie into. There's literally no other way that it would be possible. And several years ago, there was a lady, and she came to me and she said, Scott, I need your help. She said, my daughter is missing, along with my three grandchildren, and we need your help finding them. And I said, well, okay, let's see what we can do. Let's see how we can help. I don't know. Let's see. And I said, how long has she been gone? She said, 3 days. Okay, that puts a little different set of urgency on it than, you know, a couple hours or something. It's 3 days. And at the time, we were in a little town called Riverton, Wyoming. We were kind of on tour. And people said, oh, well, she was supposed to go. She said she was going up in the mountains over here. So this is where everybody's looking, is over here in these mountains. If you could give us a little direction as to where in these mountains to go, that'd be really cool. And so I sat down and I cleared my head and I meditated and did the things that I do to make sure that the stuff I'm getting is true and accurate and from source and all these things. And grabbed a sheet of typing paper and I started drawing this goofy map. And this goofy map made no sense to me at all. There was no Scott thinking in there about it. There was just this thing. And I got done and I turned it around and I showed her the paper and I said, boy, I think y'all are in the wrong place. According to what I get, she's about 265 miles in the opposite direction. And here's a map to get you there. And she went, but Scott, they're here and she said and they're doing and the note said and the blah, 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 and they're right here. And And I said, well, okay, but you're not finding her because what I get is she's not there. I think she's over this way. And she's looking at this map and she said, man, this map makes no sense. It's not like you got, I mean, there was a highway and you could see the highway number, so we knew where and, what town it was close to and going in that direction. But anyway, she kind of left, kind of shaking her head, not real sure what to think, because she thought that she was going to have what she thought validated of she's here, she's 20 minutes away and go get her, not she's 265 miles over this way. Anyway, long story short, she gathered up some of the aunties and they got in the car and they started to cruise, and they're cruising down this highway and they're cruising to, they're watching the odometer, 264, 265, this kind of thing, and they're looking at the map and there's this thing that looks like a little tic-tac-toe board. And she's like, what the heck is that? I said, turn right at the tic-tac-toe board. And of course she's thinking, this kid's loopy. But, she's already driven 265 miles, you might as well start looking for a tic-tac-toe board. And she did, and there's these little ranch roads coming off, and here's this thing that looked like an old railroad crossing sign, but half of it was missing, and all that was left looked like a tic-tac-toe board. Wow. And they went, well, gosh, I guess maybe we should turn this way. And so they did. And they cruised down this little road for a little while, and there's a fork in the road. And they're like, well, do we go left, do we go right? I don't know. And the next little bit of instruction said, follow the V's. Just follow the V's. And so they're at this, do we turn left, do we turn right? And they're looking, and over to the left is this big flock of birds, and it just looked like all these little V's in the sky right at that moment. Wow. And I went, well, I guess we'll turn this way and follow these V's. And a highway became a little road, became a smaller road, became a dirt road, became a hunting trail. Middle of nowhere hunting trail, following this goofy little map. And they're driving down a couple miles down this little old, looks like a wagon trail, hunting trail thing, and really starting to doubt this thing. I mean, on some level, the people in the car are going, what are the chances of this tic-tac-toe thing, and the V's, and the this, and the that? The other hand is, are we idiots? We're driving down this thing that doesn't look like anybody's driven down it in 100 years, and this is people's lives at stake. This is my daughter and my grandkids, and everybody said they're over here, and one of the aunties said, no, just keep going. Let's just go over that hill and see what happens. They went over the hill, and as they did, they saw her white Explorer with one of its wheels missing. And a little ways up, they saw a little hunting cabin, and they drove quickly up to the hunting cabin. They found the daughter, they found the 3 kids. They put them in the car, they rushed them to the hospital. They were suffering from malnutrition, dehydration. They had found a bag of beans in this hunting cabin and melted snow to have food, and that's what had kept them through. But the snow was pretty sparse and there wasn't much water, and so anyway, on the way back to town, the lady calls me. The woman's name was Grace, and she said, Scott, she said, I don't believe, I don't know what to do. She said, I don't believe in psychics, I'm Catholic. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, but I can tell you this. She said, the paramedics are telling me that another 24 hours and myself and my 3 kids would be dead. Thank you. And in that moment, you don't know what to say, other than the praise goes a lot higher than me. I'm glad I could do my part, and I'm really glad that your family went on a whim, had a divine appointment, got connected, and then had the courage to follow the map that they were given. And to me, it just says how great God is, because the chances of V's being in the air at that exact moment is just mind-blowing to me. Absolutely mind-blowing. Now, there was another time that I was hired by a casino, a big high roller thing, and this is part of their gift package that they had on this weekend for their high rollers, was to come see the psychic. And so this weren't my typical, come get help people. These were okay, dude. And so I'm sitting down in this little room, and this big deal thing, and this dude comes in. He's a great big dude. I mean, one of them. How you doing? I mean, big guy, ponytail, gray hair, just big dude. This little bitty lady with him. And he sits down, he says, okay, kid, impress me. I'm just dead. He's like, I already believe in psychics, but this was part of my package, so get after it. I'm like, oh, help me God. Help me out here. I said, well, all right, man, we'll tune in. We'll see what we get, you know, because I'm not used to like being a party trick that's like for entertainment purposes. That's not my deal. But the way that God had it work, that's how this thing happened. And so we went. And so I tuned into this guy, and I'm like, okay, who needs to talk to you? What needs to happen? I'm here to be of service. And I see this little blonde girl, probably 4 or 5 years old. And she says, you tell my dad I'm okay. And I looked at this big mountain of a man, and I said, well, you know, I see this little blonde girl, and she says, you tell my dad I'm okay. Now, at this point, I'm kind of expecting a reaction. And the reaction I got was not the reaction I was looking for. He said, well, I don't got a daughter. Oops. Well, sir, not anymore, because I'm talking to her. He says, I do not have, nor have I ever had a daughter. Why don't you tune back in and see what else you got in your bag of goodness? All right, let's see what we got here. Tune back in. There's that same little blonde girl. She says, you tell my dad I'm okay. This is really important that he knows this. Now, at this point, I'm forced with a decision. My logical, rational mind knows this dude is really big and has just told me I do not have, nor have I ever had a daughter. On the other hand, I got this little blonde girl saying, I want you to deliver this message for me. A, B, A, B. Okay, well, I'm not me without B, so here comes B, and I give it to the man again. And at this point, he's getting upset. And he stands up so quick that his knees, the back of his knees hit the chair, and the chair goes flying. And he's big, like big. And I'm looking, and he's, you know, yelling all kinds of things about Fruit Loop and waste of time and blah, blah, blah. And looks at his wife and says, come on, honey, let's get out of here. And they start to walk away, and I'm looking at this little girl, and I said, if you got anything to tell this man, now's the time. And as he was getting ready to leave, as he was walking out the door, I said, sir, if this is not your daughter, then underneath your shirt right now is not a cross. Not only a cross, but a Celtic cross that was on a keychain that you bought for her when you were at the war. And she died before you came home from the war, and you made it into a necklace. Now, if there is not a cross right there, then this isn't the girl. And the man stopped, and he looked at me, and he ripped open his shirt, and there was his keychain. And he dropped to his knees, and he started bawling. And he said, Scott, I have PTSD. There's a good chunk of time of my life that I don't remember. My wife and I here have only been married 3-4 years. She didn't know me back then. And it took that for me to remember I did have a little girl. She was a little blonde girl, and she died before I came home from the war. And that's something I thought I would never, ever forget. Tell her I love her. That's intuition. That's how what we have can be used to heal other people. Now with that, some folks say it's mind reading. No, it's not, because his mind didn't remember it. His mind didn't remember it. But the healing came through anyway. There are so many ways, there are countless stories of things that I could tell with the benefits of this thing called intuition. And those are just a couple of the stories that, rather than playing a video, I wanted to share. So today's message, intuition. We all got it. We all have it. It's all us. Now, this is kind of an interesting thing, but I love technology because it helps us to explain things a little more. Imagine if instead of a body, right, you were born, you were handed a laptop, right, and you had one laptop from birth all the way to death. Now it came with some preloaded programs depending on what time and day and year and country and parents and all the things that my little girl got to decide before she came down and chose some of the programming on her laptop. Now we all have our laptop, our body, our brain. Best computer in the world. We're born with this, right? Now, in a computer, we can say it's built with Wi-Fi. It connects to everything. Well, so are we, no different. You can buy and install programs, right? I can go to school and get this degree and I can put this program in. And I can go and have this experience and put this program in. And I'm really fond of these things, so I can put these programs in. And my computer on its own, your computer on its own, is extremely powerful. But what makes it even more powerful is its ability to connect to the internet. If I say, with that little computer right there, if it wasn't tied to the internet right now, and I ask that computer something that it doesn't know, It says file not found. How often in life are we trying to figure out big time stuff of what's going on? And it says file not found. Sorry, no data. Or it reaches for data that doesn't exactly fit. We get into a relationship with somebody and the only thing that we have are these files on past relationships. Now they don't apply because it's a new person. But rather than file not found is this is the closest we got in your search. Okay, well then let's, or not. Now, maybe I'm going to start a new job or I want a career change. Here's what I've done in the past. Here's what I know how to do. Here's what I feel I'm qualified to do. Let me look in a paper. Here's what's available right now. Right? We look at all this data. Or we can tune in. We can connect to the internet, if you will, the spiritual internet that says intuition just means inner teacher. Right? So once I saw a t-shirt that said, every answer I will ever need is contained within this t-shirt. And it's true.
That's good.
Because we're connected, because we're all connected. And because we're connected, if we take the time to stop and ask, we get answers. Now the other thing is, and I love this from the computer analogy, you go to Google, right? What you find depends greatly on what you type in. What question you ask, right? It's not, do I want to buy this car right now? Yes. Okay, intuition told me to buy the car. No, intuition told you you wanted to buy the car. Now if you ask the different question, is this the right time for me to buy the car? No, not yet. We've got something better for you. Or yeah, it is, go do it. But if we type in the question that says, do I want it? Well, yeah, you do. Okay. When we look at things from this perspective, the hardest thing to do is just turn off our head. Our little thinker just wants to answer everything. The minute you ask a question, it's like engaging the search engine of that little computer. The search engine is like going to my computer and typing in anything and it'll find it. And it finds like 1,000 things that don't even relate, right? But it came up with something, right? And so that's our mind. We ask a question to our intuition, and our mind is like that spoiled kid that goes, ooh, me, I got this. I got this, it's this and this and this and this and this. Now, we've seen the commercials where somebody types something in and instead it brings up rock bands and cookies and recipes and all this stuff. You're like, where does that even come from, right? And that's like our mind too. We ask a question that's really important to us. Should I do this thing or go in this direction? And it's like cookies, rock bands, your ex-girlfriend, puppies. Well, I'm confused. I just don't know what to do. Now, when we do take our intuition and we do stop, right? I've got this decision to make and I'm going to stop. I'm going to think for a second about what the question I'm typing into my search engine of the internet is. Is this in my highest and best ... Answer, yes. Answer, no. Whichever it is. And now I take time to apply that right now. Now I'm identifying this intuition as my truth. I now know this is my truth because I asked, it was specific, I got a specific, it's done. Then we want it validated. Hey, look, I found this thing and I asked my intuition and said, yes, what do you think? You think yes? Yes is the way to go. How about you? I was talking about this thing and yes is maybe well, you think no, don't you? Maybe I need to go back and ask again. Because we need the validation for our intuition as we're building and learning to trust our intuition. And I can guarantee you that when that man, that big dude, came to me, if he had came to me when I had given my very first reading, right? I just said, I don't know what the little girl had to do with nothing. Fruit Loops, Cheerios, gotcha, here's your money back, got to go. It was only because I had developed the trust with my intuition that I was solid in my foundation of this is what I'm here to do. That it gave me the strength to put belief into this, to put myself into this because I needed to. Another little example, I was speaking at a keynote speaking at a paranormal conference in Wisconsin. And there's this big group, I mean, thousands of people, it was pretty wild, but it was a ghost hunter thing. And I thought, it was my first ghost hunter thing, and I thought, wow, these people must be really into psychics. Yeah, nah, they was into gadgets and disproving psychics. And I'm like, oh boy, how y'all doing? But we had fun, and the stuff that came through made sense, and they dug it, and we got along just fine, and they said, hey dude, tomorrow, wow, big rain. And they said, hey, you know what, dude, tomorrow is Halloween. Oh, no kidding, I didn't even know I was on a 5-state, 6-week, blah, 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 bless you, tour. And they said, you know, we're gonna go on this ghost hunt thing tomorrow, will you come with us? We're kind of digging what you had to say. And we wanna see it in action and see how it works with our gadgets. And so we checked the schedule, we had the extra time, and we went, and they drove us, I don't know, a couple hundred miles in some direction. I don't know, it was dark, I was tired, didn't know nothing about, I don't even know what state I was in at that point. And got into a hotel, got all of enough time to lay down before ding dong, okay, gotta go. It was like an hour worth of sleep from check-in to this thing started at dark 30 in the morning. Anyway, so they take us to this house, and there's this big house thing, and they were doing a TV show, they were doing a radio live interview, they were doing something else, plus the ghost hunters had their equipment, so there was wires like everywhere. And they said, okay dude, here's the deal. The TV show is going to be filmed over here. The radio is going on right now. We're going on in about 15 minutes, so go hunt. Go do what you do, where you talk to the spirits, and come back and tell us what you found. And you get about 15 minutes and you're live on the air. Coffee? Just coffee? And so I've got my coffee and I'm walking through this house trying to figure out where am I supposed to go, what am I supposed to do, how can I be of service here? Because again, to me it's not a party trick, this is real-time stuff. And I wind up in the basement of this house, and I'm looking at this thing that looks like it's stored like old-time kegs of, like the wooden keg with the wire around it thing, the metal thing. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, I want to be on the other side of that wall. And I'm thinking like, okay, I'm not really in my body yet. I've only had this much coffee. And I pull on this thing like a Scooby-Doo cartoon, and doggone if it doesn't open. And here's this hidden passage that goes from the main house out to, it was an old house, the carriage house, which has later become the garage. And I'm down in this little hallway, and I'm like, oh the heck, and I see this little boy over in the corner. And I'll go walking over to him like, dude, how you doing? I'm Scott, nice to meet you. I'm Roy. Hi, Roy, okay. Dude, I normally don't work this way, but I got like 10 minutes. If you need me to low down on this place, they need me to go tell them what's up. And if you could help me out here, that'd be really cool, man. What's the story with this joint? What's your story? How can I help tell your story? What really is going on? And he says, well, here's my story. This is what this place was for. I was a runaway slave. And I went, dude, this is Wisconsin. Did you get lost? And he said, no. And so I'm like, okay, tell me your story. Share your story with me. And he says, you know, I said, you know, what was it like to be a runaway slave? What was slavery like? What was freedom like? What was this? What not? I understand it's a condensed conversation, so we had 10 minutes. And dude says, you know, stuff that just amazed me. He said, freedom sucks. And I went, what? He said, slavery. What? I was hooked up. I like that. And I went, you what? And he said, what people call slavery. He said, man, when I lived with my parents in a place that was warm. I knew what I was doing that day. The place I lived, the people I lived with, my family, I loved it. When they said you're free, my dad died, my mom died, they said run this way, and it's cold. And I'm shaking, and there's not always food, and I was waiting out by the river in the back of this house, and you had to wait for the candle to go behind different colored panes of glass to know whether they were out looking for runaway slaves or it was safe to come in or proceed with caution. And I waited by this tree by the river in the backyard for it seemed like days until that candle moved from this colored glass to this colored glass. I knew it was safe to come in and get some food and these kind of things. None of which I expected. Like none of which, like slavery's bad. It's not. But just this little boy's perspective to see things from the eyes of a child are very different than seeing things in the eyes of a history book. And so about that time they start yelling for me upstairs and they're like, dude, come up here, blah, 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 we need you on the radio. And the TV and whatever. So I'm walking up the stairs to see this door that Ken was telling me about with the colored panes with the candle moved. No door. No color panes of glass. So I look out through the door. No river. No river. And here I am. Okay, Scott, tell us what you found. Okay. I'm in Wisconsin. I'm like, okay, well, here's the deal. Went downstairs, needed to be on the other side of the wall, found a little passageway leading to this, and found this little boy and Roy, and we had a good time, and he told me about this door and the colored lights and the river in the back, and that's what he had to say, and I'm just waiting for, like, my mind is playing out, yeah, like eggs and raw fruit, you know, to be thrown, because I looked, there wasn't no door and there wasn't no river. And so, and this is a whole group of people I've never, you know, I've known all of 24 hours when I spoke at their conference. Anyway, they said, well, that's very interesting. We'd like to bring over the curator of the famous Octagon House of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. I learned this. And she said, well, all of the locals know that the famous Octagon House was built by our town's first mayor as a stop on the Underground Railroad for transporting runaway slaves from the south to the north. And that's what it is absolutely famous for. Now, the door that Roy was talking about was in the back of the house from this year until this year, and we actually moved it about 35 years ago because we got tired of people traipsing through the flowers to get to the backyard to see the door, so we moved it into the front door so that people could see it just as they drove up. And some of you locals will remember that about 35 years ago there was a small tremor earthquake, and when that happened it actually shifted the river about 4 miles this way. And if you go in the backyard, you go down in the weeds, you can actually see the old dried peak bed, but you can't see it from the house, you can't even see it, da-da-da-da-da. And I went, wow, cool God, like, go Roy, dude, that's cool stuff. And now this was so then all the Ghost Hunter guys, they're like, ooh, and they brought all their equipment down this little passageway, and they're like, is he there? Can you see him? I'm like, dude, he's right there. Point it that way. And they said, well, you know, can you ask him to move or to do something? We pick up things out of our equipment. And I'm like, I don't know, I'll see if dude give me a high five. And so I'm talking, and I'm like, yeah, dude, come on. And so dude is sitting by the stairs, and he runs over and he gives me a high five. And right at that moment, the Ghost Hunter folks said, dude, did you get that? And what they clocked was what they identified as a 9-inch ball of energy moving from the stairs to the camera where my hand was, clocked at 90 miles an hour.
Wow.
And that was pretty wild. Technical break. Hold on one second. I'll show it to you.
Oh, cool.
So right from the stairs, going right over, was a 9-inch ball that happened at the exact moment that I'm seeing this little boy come over and give me a high five. My hand's right behind the camera.
Wow.
And that's what their cameras picked up. And they identified as a 9-inch ball of energy traveling about 90 miles an hour. And there's about 12 people on this side of the camera, and there's nobody saw any of that stuff. But anyway, by the way, when you've got important stuff going on in your life, when you've got important decisions to make, you have all the answers you will ever need contained right within your t-shirt. And it's not even magic like the t-shirt, it's what's inside the t-shirt. We are all connected to each other. In the beginning song, Help Me Remember, we talk about quantum physics and string theory and all that. And it was wild to me as a geek that when they disproved string theory, because it didn't work out mathematically, the only thing that worked was something called M theory. And M theory stood for mystery, now imagine that. But the only way it worked was if there was a monofilament, literally atoms wide, that connected everything in the entire universe. Mathematically, that was the only way it worked. Now, having worked with the Native Americans for decades, having studied the ancient esoteric blah 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 and the gurus and all this stuff, plus just my own knowledge, was like, dude, we all know we're all connected. We all know that we're all connected to everything else. And if we're all connected to everything else, then we're none of us a standalone computer. We're all connected to the World Wide Web, spiritually speaking. And because we are, we have access to every answer that we want. We are given the free will to type anything into the search bar we want. Seek and you shall find. Be careful what you seek because you'll probably find it. Use caution with what words you type into your search engine, with what words you are searching for. Now, having owned a computer store for a lot of years back in South Dakota and worked on computer after computer, I can tell you that on the outside they all look the same, on the inside they all look pretty similar. But you start getting into somebody's hard drive and there ain't no two of us alike. The stuff that's on my computer wouldn't be on your computer, back into my computer, all of these things. all the things that we search for, the places we go, our favorites, the programs that we use. Our computers are as unique as we are. They're an external extension of ourselves. But technology, in my mind, seems to mirror intuition. I remember when I was a kid, little big kid, the phone would ring. I'd go, oh, that's Grandpa. The phone would ring. Oh, can I talk to so-and-so? Oh, that's Grandpa. Oh, that's so-and-so. Right? And everybody goes, ooh, that's psychic. Right? Technology says, caller ID. Dude, my mom, when I'm over her place, her TV tells her who's calling. Calling 605, go, your daughter, Lisa Rose. Right? I'm like, I've been outgraded by a talking TV, you know. But as a kid, you know, you would tune in, you would know stuff that other people couldn't know. Now a smartphone, like you could, oh, okay, and this is the answer to that. I mean, we all have access to this amazing world of information, and so I encourage you all to use it. And I'll turn the time over to Mary for the meditation to help us get in touch with our intuition even more.